What if I told you that entrepreneurship has almost nothing to do with owning a business? That some of the most successful entrepreneurs that I know have never even registered an LLC or printed a business card. That begs the question, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? The answer to that, my friend, might just surprise you.
Welcome to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur, where being a busy parent isn't your limitation. It is your superpower. Superpower. I'm Tracy Brinkmann, and this is not your typical hustle harder podcast. No. This is for busy parent entrepreneurs who refuse to choose between bedtime stories and business dreams. Every single episode delivers actionable strategies for turning your limited time into unlimited potential. From digital marketing and side hustles to online courses and passive income, we're here to help you build an empire between soccer practice and science projects. Because we dark horses, we do not wait for the perfect time, we create it.
What is up? What the hell is up, my Dark Horse friends and family? Welcome back to another episode of the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your humble host, Tracy Brinkmann, and today we're going to dive deep into the question that I hear asked all the time. What exactly is an entrepreneur? Now, I know my magic headphones are going off already. I can hear what you're thinking. Tracy, come on. We know what an entrepreneur is. It's someone who starts a business. Hold on. Bear with me, because if that is your definition, you're missing about 90% of what makes entrepreneurship such a powerful force in the world today. And today we're going to tackle that right on. We're going to go beyond the business cards, beyond the bank accounts, and explore what really makes an entrepreneur tick. We're going to uncover the mindset, the motivations, and the magic that separates true entrepreneurs from everyone else. And most definitely, we're going to help you figure out if you've got that entrepreneurial DNA, and if not, how you can develop it. I've been thinking a lot about my personal entrepreneurial journey lately. I remember back when I was working in my corporate job at Coca-Cola. On paper, I was doing great. I mean, if you look at my W-2 or my bank account or anything else, I was climbing the ranks. I was managing teams. I was controlling millions of dollars in marketing inventory for Coca-Cola Marketing USA. But then there was this itch, this feeling inside that was meant for something different. Something more, maybe. I'd sit in meetings watching people debate for hours on hours over the smallest little decisions, that corporate America red tape. And my mind would just race with ideas of how to fix things, how to make them better, and how to create something new. Maybe even not better, but something new. And here's the funny thing. I was being entrepreneurial even back when I collected a corporate paycheck. You see, entrepreneurship started for me long before I ever launched a business. It started with how I approached problems, how I viewed opportunities, and how I thought about creating value in my world or in the world in general. I was an entrepreneur in my mind long before I was an entrepreneur on paper. I remember this one project where I needed to track the marketing assets across multiple locations. It was pretty much, you have to imagine, we were in every one of the major cities in the United States. The official solution that was developed was going to take months, and it was going to cost millions of dollars to create. So what did I do? I sat down one weekend over, sitting at home, scribbling things out of my journal, and I built a simple tracking system over that weekend that solved 80% of the problem with zero additional cost. Okay, maybe it was going to cost the cost of a new computer at the time. We're talking the 90s here, so maybe that was $2,000. My boss, when I presented it to her, she was thrilled, but she was also a little confused when she asked me, why would you do all this extra work? Well, I couldn't really explain it then, but now I can. It's just how entrepreneurs are wired. We see problems as invitations, like little open doors, and we want to peek into them. We get excited about finding better ways of doing things. We can't help but to create a solution. So, all that said, here's what we're going to cover today in today's episode. First, we're going to redefine what entrepreneurship really means beyond just business ownership. Then we're going to explore the DNA of entrepreneurs, what core traits really make them tick. Third, we're going to dig into what truly drives those entrepreneurs out there. And spoiler alert, it's rarely just about money. Fourth, we're going to help you figure out if you're built for entrepreneurship with an honest assessment. Okay, so stick with me for that. And then fifth, we're going to talk about how to develop your entrepreneurial edge, even if you don't feel like you were already born with it. And of course, I'm going to share my usual whiskered wisdom to help you take action with all of this. So whether you're already running a business, dreaming of starting one, or just curious about what this whole entrepreneurship thing really is, I think this episode is for you. So let's dive in and discover what makes my entrepreneurs the dark horses that are out there about to change the world.
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
All right, first, let's start with cleaning up some misconceptions about what an entrepreneur really is. I think that's one of the biggest things, is getting past what we think when it's wrong, because I think this is where a lot of people are out there getting stuck before they even get started. The first big misconception I keep coming across is that entrepreneurship equals business ownership. Look, owning a business doesn't automatically make you an entrepreneur, just like having a business doesn't mean you can't be entrepreneurial. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, stick with me. I've met plenty of business owners who are really just self-employed. They've kind of bought themselves into a job. They've really gone out and created themselves their own crazy job. They work crazy hours. They're doing everything themselves, and they've kind of trapped themselves into a system that they themselves have created. To me, that's not entrepreneurship. That's just a different kind of employment contract where you're both the boss and the employee, and most often, you're probably the worst boss you've ever had. Now, on the flip side, I've met people inside massive corporations who are absolute entrepreneurs at heart. I was. Kind of described that to you earlier. They're out there, they're creating new systems, they're spotting opportunities, and they're building teams and solutions that create massive value within the organization. They just happen to be doing it with someone else's company. Here's how I think entrepreneurship is defined. It's the mindset and the ability to identify problems, create solutions, and deliver value, regardless of the resources currently at your disposal. Okay? Doesn't mean you have everything available to you. You do it anyway. It's about seeing what could be instead of just what is. Here's the second misconception that I want to attack. This second misconception is that entrepreneurs are primarily motivated by money. Big red X. No. Don't get me wrong here. I like making money, just like the next person, right? It's like Zig Ziglar says, money's like air. It's all good until you don't have any. But if money is your only driver, entrepreneurship is probably the hardest path that you can choose. There are far easier ways to make a buck than starting something completely from scratch. Now, misconception number 3 is that entrepreneurship is about big ideas and eureka moments. In reality, most successful businesses are not built on revolutionary ideas. Yeah, we know about them. We've heard about them. We are probably consumers of some of those products. But most of the entrepreneurs out there are built on slightly better execution, slightly better service, and slightly better understanding of what it is their core clients actually want, actually need, and then delivering it to them. Here's the thing. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about making the wheel roll a little smoother, making that wheel look a little sexier, making that wheel a little easier to maintain. Okay? Now, let's talk about the entrepreneurial mindset versus the business owner mindset, because I think this distinction is crucial to understand. A business owner thinks, how can I build a stable company that generates reliable income? Okay, nothing wrong with that. An entrepreneur thinks, how can I create something that solves a problem in a way that no one else is out here solving it? Aha! A business owner focuses on maintaining and protecting what they've built. An entrepreneur is consistently looking for the next opportunity, that next innovation, that next problem to solve to take their business to the next level. Okay? A business owner works in their business. An entrepreneur works on their business, and often the entrepreneur is working on multiple businesses or projects simultaneously. A business owner is going to follow established paths. They're going to walk paths that have been walked before. An entrepreneur quite often is going to create new paths, often where others see nothing but obstacles. They're going, I can't do it because that's in the way. The entrepreneur is going to bust that down, dig down under it, jump over it, or go around it, whatever it might be. And now here's the thing I want to make sure I get completely clear. There's nothing wrong with being a business owner. The world needs rock solid, stable business owners and businesses out there. That's different from the entrepreneurial approach. With me? Stick with me here. The entrepreneurial approach is about growth. It's about innovation. And quite often, it's about disruption, stepping in and totally shaking shit up 100%. And if we look at the historical evolution of entrepreneurship, and I have, it's fascinating to see how this concept has changed over time. Now, mind you, I'm going to be speaking from a person that's grown up in the United States, born back in the 60s and come through to 2025 when we're recording this right now. Let's start with the word entrepreneur. It comes from the French word meaning one who undertakes. It originally referred to people who took on financial risk to pursue a new venture. In the early days of capitalism, entrepreneurs were seen primarily as risk takers and the organizers of business, kind of putting things together. Here's what I want to do. I want you to think about those merchant adventurers who would fund ships to go sailing across the vast oceans to distant lands to pick up valuable goods, to bring them back and hopefully sell them for a profit. Okay? They put up that money in the first place, found that captain would grab the crew, and they would set off on that adventure. By the 20th century, though, economists like Joseph Schumpeter started to recognize entrepreneurs as innovators. Now, these are people who create creative destruction, he says with air quotes, by introducing new products, by introducing new methods and new systems that replace the old ones. In recent decades, I think with the rise of the internet and digital technology and it becoming more prevalent throughout everyone's home, entrepreneurship has and is evolving again. Now it's increasingly about creating scalable solutions, often with minimal resources. That's like talking to my parents out there, right? This lean startup movement, we can call it lean startup, we can call it bootstrapping, we can call it side hustles. These are all modern expressions of entrepreneurship that our grandparents, and for some of us, maybe even our parents, would not even be able to recognize. What's interesting is that throughout all this evolution, the core of entrepreneurship has remained consistent, in my humble opinion. It's all about seeing opportunities where other people see problems, taking calculated risks, and creating value through innovation. And today, I think we're seeing the democratization of entrepreneurship. The barriers to entry, super low. Can you say AI, ladies and gentlemen? You don't need a factory. You don't need millions and millions of dollars of capital to start something meaningful. You need a problem that you spot worth solving. You need the determination to solve it, and then you need the ability to connect with the people who have that problem and are willing to pay you to solve that problem. And that's why I believe entrepreneurship is more about mindset than mechanics. It's not about the business plans and it's not about the funding rounds. While those can be a part of it, it's about how you see the world and how you see your place in it. Here's a question. Are you a consumer of what exists, or are you a creator of what could be, of what can be, of what will be as far as you're concerned? Do you accept things as they are, or do you consistently ask, what if we tried it this way? That, my friends, I think is the difference between the entrepreneurial mindset and the conventional one. So before we go any further, I want you to pause and consider this. Entrepreneurship is not something that you do, it's something that you are. And that's what we're going to explore through the rest of this episode. The DNA that makes entrepreneurs tick.
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
That said, that begs the question, what exactly is in the DNA of an entrepreneur? What makes them tick so much differently than the average person? Well, here's my breakdown. First, let's talk about the core traits that I have observed in successful entrepreneurs, both myself, as well as the hundreds that I've been able to interview or that I've worked with over the past few decades. At the top of the list is resourcefulness. True entrepreneurs have this almost supernatural ability to make something out of nothing. It's like a magician. Yeah. Give an entrepreneur a problem and give it to them with limited resources, and they will work up some magic. It's like MacGyver meets business, all right? I have seen people start million-dollar companies from their kitchen tables with nothing else but a laptop and a shit ton of determination. Now, next on the list, adaptability. The entrepreneur's path is never one that is a straight line. It's this culmination of zigs and zags and adjustments and pivots and sometimes complete 180s, or AKA a reinvention. The ability to change direction without losing momentum, that right there is pure entrepreneurial gold. I can remember back when I first started this very podcast, or even the one before that, I had this whole thing all mapped out, had a plan all mapped out, written down in my journal. And then reality hit me. And that reality came in the form of feedback and data. It came in and I had to adapt. The entrepreneurs who survive aren't necessarily the strongest, and they certainly aren't the smartest. They are, however, the ones who adapt the quickest. And then next on the list is persistence. And this is what I'm going to call productive stubbornness. It's not just about working hard. It's about continuing to push forward one step at a time when everyone else has already sat down and quit. It's about hearing no 20 damn times and still asking that 21st person, do you want to buy? It's about failing repeatedly, but refusing to feel like a failure. Now, that brings us to risk tolerance and the entrepreneur's relationship with failure, because this is where things, I think, are going to get a little interesting. Contrary to popular belief, successful entrepreneurs aren't these wild and crazy risk takers. No, they're calculated risk takers. A good entrepreneur is not going to jump out of the damn plane without first checking their parachute. Yeah, they're going to assess the risks. They're going to mitigate what they can. And then, and this is the key part, ladies and gentlemen, so lean and listen to me, They act despite on what will be remaining uncertainty. Boom, mic drop. There it is. What separates entrepreneurs from others isn't the love of risk. It's the different calculation of what's actually risky. Bear with me here. I want you to hear this one out. Most people think staying in a safe job is low risk and starting a business is high risk. Entrepreneurs, perhaps like you, often see it the opposite way. Depending on a single employer for your entire life, that, to me, perhaps to you, is risky. And as for failure, entrepreneurs, they do not love failing. I don't care what they tell you. They're bullshitting you if they say, oh, I love to fail. No, that's another myth. What they do differently, though, is they do not personalize the failure. When a project fails, they don't think, oh, shit, I'm a failure. No, they think, well, damn, that approach didn't work. What can I learn from it? And what should I try next, knowing this new bit of data? Look, here's the thing. I have personally failed more times than I can count. On my fingers, on my toes, on my wife's fingers and toes, on my kids' fingers and toes, and I got lots of kids. The project I mentioned earlier, the first few episodes, they were rough. And I mean R-O-U-G-H rough. But each failure, he says in air quotes, was just data. It wasn't failure. It was feedback, information that I could use to get better. Entrepreneurs have this unique ability to extract value even from what others would consider their failures. Okay? Now let's talk about the problem-solving orientation that I think is baked into every entrepreneurial mindset. Where others are going to see annoyances, entrepreneurs see opportunities. That product that doesn't quite work right, that service that leaves all the customers out there frustrated, that inefficient process that wastes time, to the entrepreneurial mind, those aren't just problems. Those are invitations to create a solution. Those are those doors that are cracked open a little bit, letting the light shine through. They pick up on that light, they peek through it, and they're going, shit, I know how to solve this. I remember being frustrated how hard it was to launch a podcast. And I launched a couple of them, about to launch another one. All the technical details that go into it, the marketing aspects, the content creation challenges, you know what I'm talking about? It can get overwhelming. But instead of just complaining, I thought, I bet there are other people struggling with this too. And I knew there were because I went through other courses with them. All that frustration eventually led to my own ProPod launch course, which has helped a number of folks launch their successful podcasts. You see, that's the entrepreneurial mind at work, constantly translating problems into potential solutions, constantly translating annoyances into opportunities. Then there's vision and opportunity recognition. It's almost like a sixth sense that the entrepreneurs tended to develop, right? Remember the sixth sense? He was, I see dead people. Well, the entrepreneurs, they're like wearing these special glasses that gives them the ability to see what others folks can't see. They see possibilities that are invisible to others, like that little boy could see dead people. And if you haven't seen the movie, I may have just ruined it for you. They can look at an existing market and they can spot the gaps like they were the Grand Canyon. It's like, well, why isn't anybody serving anybody right there? They can anticipate the needs before they become obvious to everyone else. They can connect dots that seem completely unrelated to the rest of the world. Okay. And this isn't a mystical power. It's a skill developed through practice. It's about training yourself to ask different questions. Here's what I mean by that. So instead of asking, why is this the way it is? Entrepreneurs are going to ask something like, how could this be better? Instead of accepting the limitations that are presented to them, they ask, what if I could remove that constraint or that constraint over there? And then they can see the rest of it just flowing through. And there's always a single constraint. Maybe there are two that just kind of jams everything up and everyone becomes complacent with that constraint. The entrepreneur says, what if I remove this? Yeah. Okay. And I have found that this vision often comes from being so deeply immersed in a particular field or a problem in a specific space. That's when you really start to see it. You see, when you understand something so deeply, you start to see the opportunities that the casual observer just kind of walks right on past. Walk on by, do. That's why I think some of the best ideas come from people who have worked in an industry for years and know exactly where the pain points are. But on the flip side, and I know some of you are thinking this, sometimes the best ideas come from people that come from another industry into a new industry, and they're looking at that problem going, why is everybody accepting this as okay? Right? Because maybe in their industry it wasn't. Yeah. So it works both ways. Now, finally, I want to talk about what I'm going to call the entrepreneurial itch. You know, that restless feeling that kind of drives the entrepreneurs forward to create and to build. Maybe you felt it. And if you're listening this far into the podcast, I bet you have, so that you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like that dissatisfaction with the status quo, that person that came into the new industry and goes, why does everybody accept this? That kind of thing. That voice in your head, it says, this could be better. I could build something right here that would solve this problem. That was when the excitement starts to bubble up and you see the problem and you can solve it. It's, I'm getting that itch right now just thinking about it. For me, the itch started really early. I mean, it was way back when I was a kid. I was always coming up with some little venture, selling drawings and teaching martial arts and installing car stereos and painting vehicles, whatever it might be. There was always something in me that wanted to create value and solve problems. And here's the thing about that entrepreneurial itch. It doesn't go away. No, don't get me wrong. You can ignore it for a while. You can even try to satisfy it with a conventional job. But if you're wired this way, like I am, the itch always comes back. And I have talked to countless people about who have spent decades in corporate careers trying to ignore that entrepreneurial itch, that entrepreneurial calling, as some people call it. And so many of them tell me the exact same thing over and over and over again. I wish I would have started sooner. Yeah. Because once you embrace this part of yourself, once you start scratching and satisfying that entrepreneurial itch, there's a kind of fulfillment that nothing else out there quite matches. Well, maybe except parenthood, but that's a whole nother podcast. So that's the entrepreneurial DNA as a whole, right? That's the entrepreneurial helix, right? Resourcefulness, adaptability, persistence, calculated risk-taking, problem-solving orientation, vision, and that undeniable itch to create that pulls it all together. But these traits, having these traits, I think is one thing. The question might be, what actually drives entrepreneurs to put them to use?
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
All right. So we've talked about what entrepreneurs are. We've talked about the traits they tend to have. But now let's get stuck right into the heart of this. What actually drives an entrepreneur? What gets them up in the morning and keeps them going through all those challenges, through all those stumbles, those bumbles, those falls, those face plants and setbacks? Well, let me tell you something. If it were just about money, there are far easier ways to make money. You want to make good money? Okay, go get an advanced degree in something and climb the corporate ladder and invest wisely. Boom, there you go. There's one way to do it. The entrepreneurial path is a little too uncertain, a little too challenging, and a little too full of ups and downs to be justified by money alone. Alone, I say. Don't get me wrong, because financial success is certainly a part of it, but it's rarely the whole story, in my humble opinion. In fact, for most of the successful entrepreneurs that I know, money is more like the scorecard that they use for the actual game that they're playing. So let's talk about those deeper motivations past the money, the real engines that tend to power the entrepreneurial journeys. First and foremost, I think, is freedom and autonomy. This one is huge, right? The desire to be your own boss, the desire to set your own schedule and to make your own decisions. Those are powerful drivers. Yeah, I'm just saying them. I'm sitting up tall and proud. My shoulders are back. I remember when I was in the corporate world, having to get permission for the smallest little damn decision, watching good ideas die in committee meetings, just kind of save me, like the witch. Anyway, and of course, all of this will just made me feel like my creative energy was just being sucked away in the corporate world's red tape-filled bureaucracy. The feeling of feeling constrained, of having your wings clipped right as you're about to jump out and soar, is almost physically painful for those who have the entrepreneurial spirit. It's certainly painful for the spirit itself. For my parents out there, especially, I think this freedom takes on a whole nother dimension. When your children are young, you want to be able to structure your work around their needs rather than the other way around. That would be priceless. Being able to be there for school events, to be present when needed, to model for them what it looks like to build something meaningful while still prioritizing your family as a whole. That kind of freedom, that's the kind of freedom that no corner office will ever be able to provide. But it's not just about time freedom. Let's be specific. It's about creative freedom, decision-making freedom, the freedom to follow your instincts and to go where they lead, to go where no man has gone before. That autonomy, intoxicating once you've experienced it, he says, raising his hand. Next, I think, is impact and legacy, because this is often one of the deeper motivations that emerge as entrepreneurs mature, as they grow and blossom and mature. In the beginning, It might be, and quite often is, about proving yourself to the world, proving yourself to yourself and those that you care about, or perhaps achieving independence. But as you grow and as you blossom as an entrepreneur, there's often this shift where you start thinking about the mark that you're going to leave on your industry, on the world. How are you changing things? How are you helping? What will remain in your industry or in the world once your name is long gone? I've seen this evolution in myself. When I started, I was focused on creating sustainable businesses that would obviously support my family. But over time, hearing from people who've been impacted by my business or my podcast, seeing how the strategies that I teach and have taught have helped parents build businesses that change their family lives, that right there, that has become the real reward. Sure, the money's nice, but the rest, deeply fulfilling. There's something profoundly satisfying about creating ripple effects of positive change. When you build a business, you're not just creating value for yourself. You're not just creating value for your family. You're creating jobs. You're solving problems for customers, and you're potentially changing an industry or at minimum, a community. And for many entrepreneurs, especially as they achieve some level of success, this impact becomes increasingly important. It's no longer about what they can get, what they can buy, the toys. At some point, you have enough toys. It becomes about what legacy will they leave behind. Then there's creative expression, the pure joy of bringing something new into the world. And as most of you are parent entrepreneurs, you know what I'm talking about. Bringing some new child into the world is an amazing experience. Bringing something new in the world of entrepreneurship and businesses is just shy of that. I'm never going to say it's as amazing as my daughter being, okay? But here's the thing. Entrepreneurs, they're creators at heart. They see possibilities and potential where others do not. And they get deep, deep satisfaction from turning those visions into reality, to bring it from paper to people. There's almost an artistic element to entrepreneurship, that feeling of creating something from nothing, of writing it down at one point, the idea. And like I said earlier, to paper to people, right? Of expressing your unique perspective through what it is you build. I felt this when I first started creating the Dark Horse Entrepreneur podcast. To me, it wasn't about just building a business asset. It was about creating a platform that expressed my unique perspective, my unique experiences, my way of seeing the world, which has changed over the past 5 years. It was about creating something that wouldn't exist if I didn't create it. And it was also about sharing my unique perspectives and then folding in those of those I was lucky enough to interview, to bring on the show, that I was impacted by. That creative desire, that desire to make something real that previously existed only in my mind. That, my friends, I think is a powerful motivator that goes far beyond any financial reward. And I think the final motivator is the drive for challenge and growth. This is what I'm going to call the mountain climber motivation. Some people are perfectly happy on the plains of life, right? Watching the wind blow the weeds back and forth, right? The golden sunrises. And there's nothing wrong with it. But my entrepreneurs out there, they are mountain climbers. They need the challenge. They need to see first what they're capable of, and then they need to test their limits, and then they need to push beyond those limits. And let me tell you, there is an addictive quality that comes along with overcoming obstacles. There's an addictive quality that comes to solving solutions that seemed completely unsolvable, to growing into challenges that just once seemed so overwhelming that you're like, oh my God, what am I ever going to do about this? And you're on the other side of it and you look back and go, shit, I want to do that again, right? Each mountain that you climb makes you stronger, makes you more capable, makes you more confident for the next one. And my friends, there's going to be another one. I remember when I first started it with online courses, the learning curve, steep. Technology, marketing, content creation, all of it, steep learning curves. And there were moments of frustration. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to lie to you. And certainly there was a lot of moments of doubt, but pushing through those challenges, developing those new skills, becoming more capable, that process of growth, that, my friends, was so deeply satisfying in a way it's really hard to explain unless I'm talking to someone who's actually experienced it. And if you have, you're nodding your head right now because you know exactly what the hell it is I'm talking about. And here's the thing about entrepreneurial growth. It's not just about the business skills that you develop. and hone and utilize. The entrepreneurial journey forces you to grow as a person. It challenges your limiting beliefs. It tests your resilience. It helps you develop your emotional intelligence, and it pushes your ass to become more than you ever thought possible, even if you thought you were amazing in the first place. I think Jim Rohn said it best, and I'm going to try and quote this as best I can. The challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, to be kind but not weak, to be bold but not be a bully, to be thoughtful but not be lazy, to be humble but not timid, to be proud but not arrogant, and to have humor without folly. Entrepreneurship demands that kind of holistic growth, as Jim Rohn kind of described it for us. So when you put all this together, the freedom and autonomy, the impact and the legacy, the creative expression and the challenge and the growth, you start to see why entrepreneurs are willing to take the harder path, why they're willing to face uncertainty and overcome obstacles that would deter the normal person. And still to this day does deter the normal person. It's not just about the destination, that successful business or that financial reward, although those are a part of it. Those are monikers to hang your hat on. It's about who you become on the journey. It's about the life that you can create from it, not just the living that you can make from it.
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
So that brings us to the $1 million question. Are you built for entrepreneurship? Is this the right path for you? And I want to help you figure this out with some honest assessment, okay? Because here's the truth. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's okay. The world needs all kinds of people doing all kinds of work. And if you're wired for this journey, recognizing that can be life-changing. So let me share with you some self-assessment questions that can help determine if you got that entrepreneurial DNA that we were talking about earlier. First, how do you respond to problems? When you encounter an obstacle or a challenge or a problem, is your first instinct to look for someone else to fix it? Or do you immediately start thinking about solutions? Entrepreneurs have this automatic problem-solving orientation. They can't help but try to fix things. They can't help but try to improve systems and find better ways to do shit. Second, how do you feel about uncertainty? I'm not talking about risk. I'm talking about uncertainty. There's a difference. Risk can be calculated. Uncertainty is when you simply don't know what's coming next. Does uncertainty paralyze you? Or perhaps maybe it energizes you a little bit or a lot. Entrepreneurs have a higher tolerance for uncertainty. They're comfortable navigating uncharted waters. Third, how resourceful are you? When you do not have everything you need, do you give up or do you get creative? Entrepreneurs are the masters of making the most of their limited resources, of finding ways forward when the path isn't clear. I remember my best friend, God bless him, he's passed away a few years ago, who had this entrepreneurial mindset, and he put it to use in the movie making industry, becoming a prop designer for an indie film company down in Dallas, Texas. And I remember him telling me about this. A friend of his approached him and said, we're doing this movie. It was a zombie kind of focused movie. We want to do a scene in the back of a police car. We have the Crown Vic that we're going to be using for the police car. What we don't have is that grating, that the piping and the wiring and everything that would separate the cops in the front seat from the zombie in the back seat. But we don't have a whole bunch of money to hire a welder or anything like that. He's like, you could see his head clicking as he's getting creative. He's like, give me like $50 in a couple of hours and we'll be ready to rock and roll. They gave him the money. He ran down to Home Depot. He came back with some PVC piping and some paint and a few other accessories. And within a couple of hours, he had fabricated out of nothing, out of his head and a few dollars and random items, the exact thing that they needed. And he left the openings for the camera at the same time. So he took the pipe and he made the piping and he created the grating and he cut the holes and then they set it up and slid it in the Crown Vic and they were able to film the movie, where the other folks were like, how do we do this? They were so busy thinking one way. He was able to think creatively. How resourceful are you? Okay. Fourth, how persistent are you? When you hit a wall, do you turn around or do you look for another way to go over, around it, or through it, right? Sometimes just bashing your head on the brick is not a wise choice. Maybe you need to grab a ladder, a shovel. Maybe you need to look how far down that wall go. Oh, look, there's an opening right there. Let me go that way. Maybe you need to get a friend and stand on their shoulders and climb over and then pull them over with you. How resourceful are you and how persistent are you? Fifth, do you take initiative? This is a big one. Do you wait to be told what to do, or do you just kind of naturally identify what needs to be done, grab the bull by the horns, and take action? Entrepreneurs, my friends, are self-starters. They don't need some external motivation or someone out there barking directions at them. No, they don't. They're like, shit needs to get done. I'm going to start doing it. And finally, do you have that itch we talked about? That restlessness, that desire to create something, that feeling that you could be doing something more, something better, building something more meaningful. The entrepreneurial itch is often the most telling sign of all. So let's talk about some signs that you might be an entrepreneur at heart, even if you haven't recognized it yet. One sign is that you're constantly coming up with cool ideas. You think they're cool. Maybe other people are like, yeah, whatever. Your mind constantly is naturally generating these possibilities, ways to improve products, new business ideas, new business concepts, solutions to problems that you encounter. You might even have a notebook full of these things sitting around. I know some of you right now are nodding. Yeah, how'd you know about that? Well, these magic headphones. Another sign is that you're a natural connector. You see how different people, ideas, or resources could come together to create value. This is when I recognized it really later in life. I mean, I didn't realize it. I was always doing things as a kid, like I mentioned earlier. When I saw this connector part of me, I was like, oh, I know that person is needing this and that person has that solution. So I put them together. You're always thinking, what if we combine this with that, even if it's just people? Okay. Here's another one. You might have noticed that you get bored easily with generic routine. While others find comfort in predictability, you find it a little bit stifling. You crave variety, a little bit of challenge, and a little bit of opportunity to create something new. And another telltale sign is that you are drawn to stories of entrepreneurs. Maybe that's why you're here listening right now. You read their biographies, you follow their journeys, and you find yourself thinking, well, shit, I could do that. There's a resonance there that goes far beyond mere interest. And perhaps most revealing, you've probably been entrepreneurial your whole life and not even realized it. Maybe you were the kid with the lemonade stand, or the teenager who found creative ways to make money, or the college student who saw opportunities where others did not. This brings us to common entrepreneurial origin stories, because there's some of the most fascinating patterns on how entrepreneurs get started. There's the problem solver origin, where someone encounters a problem, maybe in their life, maybe in someone else's life that they love, know, or trust, and they can't find a solution, and they decide to create the damn solution themselves. This is how many product-based businesses are born. There's the side hustle that grew origin story, where someone starts something small, often while still employed in a job somewhere else, and it gradually starts to take off and take a life of its own until it demands their full attention. There's another way small businesses get birthed. Then there's the expertise monetizer origin story, where someone develops a specialized skill, set of knowledge, or set of skills, and then they realize they could create more value and often more freedom by offering that set of knowledge or those set of skills directly to clients or directly to customers, rather than continuing to hire themselves out to an employer. And then there's the born-again entrepreneur origin story. This is where someone spends years, maybe even decades, in conventional employment, corporate America, climbing the ladders, and finally answering that entrepreneurial call. That itch finally surfaces, and they just got to go out there and do it because they've been ignoring it for far too long. Which one of those is your origin story? Which one is your origin story going to be? Or maybe you're already living it. Let's address the myth of the born entrepreneur origin story. This is the idea that entrepreneurs are a special breed of people who emerge from the womb ready to kick ass and take names and disrupt industries. I think this is a harmful myth because it suggests that entrepreneurship is some innate quality you either have or you don't. The reality, I think, is a bit more nuanced. Yes, I get it. Some people are more naturally inclined toward entrepreneurial thinking from an early age. It's how they're wired. Maybe something happened early in their lives to them and it made them think that way. They show these traits that we've discussed, resourcefulness and initiative and problem solving and orientation, almost instinctively. But entrepreneurship is also very much a skill set and a mindset that can be developed. It's although self-development people out there are teaching you how to change your mindset. Well, you could do that in entrepreneurship as well. I have seen people who've never considered themselves entrepreneurial discover and develop these capabilities late in life, myself included. I've seen people transform from risk-averse employees to confident business builders through gradual exposure and consistent practice. Yeah. The truth is, my friends, entrepreneurial traits exist like everything else on a spectrum, right? Some people might start with a more natural inclination, but everyone can move along that spectrum with the right mindset, with the right education, and with the right experiences. So if you're sitting there thinking, damn, I don't know if I was born an entrepreneur, let me free you from that concern right now. The question isn't whether you were born an entrepreneur. The question is whether you're willing to develop the mindset, whether you're willing to develop the skills of an entrepreneur now. You probably already have some of that mindset, and you probably already have some of those skills. You just need to fine tune them. Because here's what I believe. Not everyone is naturally inclined towards entrepreneurship. Almost anyone can develop entrepreneurial capabilities if they're so motivated to do so.
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
Okay, you've done the self-assessment. You might be thinking, shit, I want to be more entrepreneurial, but I'm not sure how to get all those traits naturally. Good news. Entrepreneurship isn't something you're born with. It's something you can develop, and it's something you can strengthen over time, like we've already said. So let's talk about how to cultivate those entrepreneurial traits, even if they don't come naturally to you right now. First, let's focus on developing that problem-solving orientation. Start training yourself to see problems differently. Whenever you encounter a frustration or whenever you encounter a challenge, instead of complaining about it and bitching and moaning to everyone around you, ask yourself, how could this be better? How could I make this better? What would solve this problem? Yeah, make it a habit to brainstorm solutions, even for problems that aren't yours, he says with air quotes, to solve. Yeah, I can do this exercise where I'll pick a random product or a service and I'll spend 5 minutes thinking about how it can be improved. It's like a workout for your entrepreneurial muscles, right? Just get your brain going, oh, I haven't thought about that. The more you practice seeing problems as opportunities or just gaps as opportunities, the more natural it's going to become. And for building resourcefulness, try giving yourself artificial constraints. Say you want to start a side hustle. Challenge yourself to do it with zero startup capital, or maybe with just $50 of startup capital. Or give yourself a tight deadline for a project that would normally take much longer. Something you say, well, realistically, this is going to take me 9 months. Okay, let's get it done in 6. How about 3? Oh, yeah. These self-imposed limitations are going to force you to get creative and do more with less. Exactly what entrepreneurs do every single day. And to develop persistence, start with small challenges and start building up. Maybe commit to a 30-day project and see it through no matter what. Then try a 60-day project, then a 90. Build that persistence muscle gradually. Remember, persistence isn't about never failing. You're going to fumble. You're going to stumble. You're going to fall. You're going to face plant. It's all about getting back up when you do that. Dust yourself off, look back, get the data, and learn from it. Now, let's talk about the mindset shifts that can transform your entrepreneurial potential. The first big shift is to go from consumer to creator. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the powers that be out there want you to remain a consumer. You need to shift from consumer to creator. Most people go through their entire life consuming what others create. Products, content, experiences, food, whatever. Entrepreneurs, they're flipping the script. They ask, what can I create that others would value, that others would consume? Start looking for opportunities to create rather than just consume. The second shift is going from employee thinking to owner thinking. Even if you're currently employed, it's okay. You can adopt an owner's mindset. All you got to do is ask yourself things like, if this were my business, what would I do different? If this were my business, how would I improve this or that? This shift in perspective starts to change how you approach everything. The third crucial shift is one from perfectionism to iteration. Perfectionism, my friends, is going to damn well kill more entrepreneurial ventures than anything else. Period. Mic drop right there. So instead of trying to be perfect before you launch, and perfect before you put anything out there, embrace the concept of minimum viable product, MVP. You've heard it mentioned across all the gurus out there. Get something basic out there. Then improve it based on feedback. So many people, they want to create this amazingly big portfolio of a product that has all the bells and whistles and whizzy wigs and features that anyone could ever ask for. And they put it out there and like, womp, womp, nobody wants it. Or if you put the MVP, the minimum viable product out there that people do want, and then they start telling you, oh, what if it would do this and what if it would do that? Now you're improving based on feedback. Done is far better than perfect. And finally, I want you to shift from I can't because to how can I? Yeah, it's a big one. You're going to have to catch yourself. I do it all the time, still to this day. When you catch yourself saying, I can't start a business because I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough knowledge, people are going to think I'm stupid. Stop and reframe it. Ask yourself, how can I start a business with my limited time? How can I start a business with my limited money, my limited capital, my limited knowledge? Whatever it is right now. My limited confidence in what that I have in myself right now. This simple reframing is going to open up possibilities where before all you saw were obstacles, walls, right? How can I start a business with my limited confidence in myself? Well, you're going to start getting answers. Okay, let me give you a practical exercise to build your entrepreneurial capabilities. Try the 1 problem, 10 solutions exercise. I want you to pick a problem that you're facing and force yourself to come up with 10 possible solutions. The first few, you're going to be, oh, this is easy, piece of cake, huh? When you get to that 5th one and 6th one, you're going to go, shit, wow, how else could I solve this problem? By the time you reach number 10, you will have been thinking far more creatively than you had in the beginning. The first ones are going to be like just going to flow out. Oh, here's all the obvious ones. Then you're going to start getting more creative. Keep doing that and practice that creativity. Then practice the value proposition challenge. I want you to look at everyday items around you, services that you use, and try to articulate their value proposition in a single sentence. And then see if you can improve it, make it even better, okay? This builds your ability to identify and communicate value. My friends, this is an essential entrepreneurial skill. Don't just say it because it's cheaper. No, that's not value. That's cost effectiveness, okay? And then the next one is do what I call opportunity spotting. Spend a week just noting down every frustration, every inefficiency, or every little problem that you or those around you encounter. Then review the list and ask which one of these might represent a business opportunity. That's going to train you to see the world through that entrepreneurial set of lenses that we were talking about earlier. And then lastly, let's try micro entrepreneurship. Before launching a full business, experiment with small entrepreneurial projects. I don't know, sell something on Etsy, offer a service on Fiverr, create yourself a digital product, and maybe even give it away initially, and then get some feedback. These low-risk ventures will give you real-world experience with your entrepreneurial process, a process you can improve through the previous exercises, right? Now let's talk about your resources and communities, because developing as an entrepreneur does not happen in isolation. It may feel like it, but it doesn't. Books, podcasts, obviously, are starting points. Besides this podcast, shameless plug right here, others you might want to try are How I Built This or Masters of Scale that share real entrepreneurial journeys, like we try to do here on occasion. For books, start with the classics, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries or The E-Myth Revisited. I've read both versions of that by Michael Gerber, okay? Online courses can provide some structured learning. Sites like Udemy and Coursera and Skillshare offer affordable courses on everything from business fundamentals to specific skills like marketing and product development. But perhaps the most valuable are the entrepreneurial communities you're going to want to dive into. Join local meetups, right? Online forums, and even Facebook groups where entrepreneurs gather. And I'm not talking about they gather for the sole purpose of pitching you their products, but the groups where folks actually gather to share ideas. I've found a few on Reddit actually here recently, and I'm loving it. These communities, they provide support, accountability, feedback, and often, right, your first customers or collaborators because you share, here's what I'm thinking of. Someone might raise their hand going, I've been looking for that. Or they may say, I know someone that's looking for that, and connect you. They become the connector. We all are entrepreneurs after all. Consider finding a mentor, he says, raising his hand. Doesn't have to be me. Someone who's a few steps ahead of you on their entrepreneurial path, maybe far ahead of you. Their guidance can help you avoid some of the common pitfalls, and certainly that will accelerate your growth. And don't overlook the power of mastermind groups. These are small groups of your peers who meet regularly to help each other solve problems, to help each other achieve goals, to help each other continue motivating each other through those stumbling and bumblings and falls and face plants. The collective wisdom and accountability of a good mastermind, trust me, is transformative. And let's talk about the dark horse advantage that I know you have, because you're still here listening. Well, an hour into this, I didn't mean for this to be this long. Because being an underdog in the entrepreneurial race, I don't think it's a disadvantage. When you're not the obvious choice, when you don't have all the advantages, you develop strengths that the favorites out there are never going to build. You become more resourceful, you become more innovative, and you become way more determined. My dark horse entrepreneurs often see opportunities that others miss because they're not following that conventional path. They're walking through the tall weeds in the dense forest. They're willing to try new approaches that might seem unorthodox because they're not bound by those industry standards and traditions. And they're like, fuck you, I'm going to do it my way. And here's the secret. Being underestimated, I think, is your superpower. When people don't expect much from you, you can fly right under the radar. You can experiment, you can fail, you can learn, you can grow without all the damn pressure and scrutiny that comes with being the favorite. Yeah, think about it that way. Some of the most successful businesses in history were started by dark horses, people who lacked the obvious advantages but made up for it with creativity and persistence and the willingness to do what others weren't. So if you're sitting there thinking you don't have the right background and you don't have the right connections and I don't have the right resources to be an entrepreneur, good. It's exactly what you want. That might be exactly what makes you completely unstoppable, because entrepreneurship isn't about starting with every single damn advantage out there. It's about creating advantages where none existed. It's about seeing possibilities where others see limitations. And it's about running your own race at your own pace towards your own vision of success. And that, my friends, is the essence of being a dark horse entrepreneur. Whew, man. Okay. So that brings us to today's Whiskered Wisdom, that moment where we distill everything we've talked about into one insight, something that you can take away with you today. If you remember nothing else from this episode, this is what I want you to remember. And here's the wisdom I want to share with you today. The true entrepreneur doesn't just build a business. They build themselves. Let that sink in for a moment. A true entrepreneur doesn't just build a business. They build themselves. You see, through my entrepreneurial journey, from those early days, hustling and side businesses, and through my corporate career and building a coaching practice and building multiple podcasts, I've realized something profound. The business is never just about the business. It's about who you become in the process of building the business, in the process of serving your clients, in the process of doing for them. Every challenge you overcome, every skill you develop, every fear you face, these things transform you. The business might succeed. The business might fail, it might pivot, or it might persist. But the growth that you experience, no one can damn well take that away from you. That, my friend, that's yours forever. I remember when I first started creating online courses, I had this vision of what I wanted to build, but I lacked so many of the necessary skills, as I mentioned before. I didn't know video production. Still don't. I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera. Put me in front of a live audience, I was amazing. I loved it. And I had limited technical knowledge, even though I was a bit of a geek. But I didn't let that stop me. Step by step by step, I learned what I needed to learn. I faced my fears of being on camera. I figured out the technology. I developed the marketing skills. And yes, I created a successful course. But more importantly, I created a new version of myself, a version with capabilities and confidence I didn't have before. That is the entrepreneurial journey in a nutshell. It's the process of becoming. Sounds a little woo-woo, but here's a metaphor that might help cement this concept for you. Think of traditional employment as riding on a train. Someone else builds the tracks. Someone else decides the destination and the stops along the way. Someone else decides the time of each of those stops. Your job is to be a damn good passenger. Maybe your job eventually becomes help operate the train. But ultimately, you are on a predetermined path for someone else, on someone else's rails. Entrepreneurship is different. Entrepreneurship is like being dropped in the wilderness. It's kind of parachuting in with a machete and a compass. And hopefully neither one of those broke when you got dropped in. There's no path until you make one. You decide the direction, you clear the way, and in the process of forging that path, you develop skills, strength, and a vision that that train passenger never needs. You may see that train passenger on those tracks as you're hacking away in your entrepreneurial jungle. The train passenger might reach their destination more easily and more comfortably. But the path maker, the entrepreneur, they become something more on the journey. So here's your actionable takeaway today. Identify one area where your entrepreneurial journey is challenging you to grow, and then lean into that growth intentionally this whole week. Maybe it's developing more discipline about your time. Maybe it's learning to communicate your ideas more effectively. Maybe it's building the courage to put yourself out there for the first time. Whatever it is, don't just endure the challenge. Embrace it, right? Give it a big old bear hug, right? Embrace it as the very thing that's building you into the entrepreneur you were meant to become. And this is where the dark horse mentality comes in so powerfully, because dark horses understand something that others miss. The race isn't just about reaching the finish line. It's about who you become in the running of the race. When you're the underdog, when you're not the obvious choice, you don't have all the advantages. You have to force yourself to dig deeper. You are compelled to develop strengths, and you're compelled to develop strategies that the favorites, they don't need anymore. Maybe they never needed. And those strengths, that resourcefulness, that resilience, that creativity that's born of necessity, they will serve you long after any single business venture succeeds or fails. So embrace the challenges. Welcome the growth. See your entrepreneurial journey not just as a path to building a business, but as a path to building yourself. Become the true entrepreneur that doesn't just build a business. They build themselves. That, my friends, is your whiskered wisdom for today. Take it, use it, and let it transform both your business and your life.
The Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
Phew. Sorry, I got a little deep on there. So we've covered a lot of ground today in our exploration of what it truly means to be an entrepreneur. Let's take a quick recap of the key points before we wrap up. We started by redefining entrepreneurship beyond just being a business owner, recognizing that it's more of a mindset and approach to creating value, regardless of the context. We talked about how entrepreneurship is more about how you think than what it is you do. We explored the DNA of entrepreneurs, those core traits like resourcefulness and adaptability and persistence that drives entrepreneurial success. We looked at how entrepreneurs approach risk and failure differently and how they're wired to see problems as opportunities. Then we dug into what really drives entrepreneurs beyond just the money, right? The deeper motivations like freedom and autonomy and impact and legacy and creative expression and the desire for challenge and growth. We helped you assess whether you're built for entrepreneurship with some honest self-reflection questions. And we debunked one of the myths of the born entrepreneur, recognizing that entrepreneurial traits exist on a spectrum and that they can be developed over time. Okay. And finally, we talked about how to develop your entrepreneurial edge through some intentional practice, mindset shifts, and connecting with the right resources and the right communities. Through it all, we emphasized that being a dark horse, being that underdog, the unexpected contender, can actually be your greatest advantage in the entrepreneurial race. Now, I want to offer you some personal encouragement here, so lean in for me. Just pay attention. Whatever you're doing, just pause it for a moment. And if you're driving, just kind of focus on the road and hear me in your ear, especially if you're just starting out on this journey, or if you're at a point where you're questioning whether you have what it takes. I want you to remember this. Every successful entrepreneur that you admire started exactly where you are right now, with an idea, with a desire, and with uncertainty about the path ahead of them and the path ahead of you. Now, none of them had it all figured out in the beginning. Heck, none of them had it all figured out probably in the middle. None of them had all the skills they needed, and none of them knew for sure that it was going to work out in the end. What separated them from those who never tried was simply this. They took the first step, and then they took the next step, and then the next. The entrepreneurial journey isn't about having all the answers, isn't about having all the advantages from the start. It's about being willing to begin before you're ready, to learn as you go, and to adapt when necessary, and finally to persist when everyone else is going to quit and fall by the wayside. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to do it alone. There's a community of fellow dark horse entrepreneurs out there who understand the journey that you're on, who face the same challenges, and who can offer support and wisdom along the way. That's why I invite you to take one simple action today. Sign up for the Dark Horse Entrepreneur newsletter. Go over to darkhorseinsider.com. Just give me your email address. Each week, I'm going to share some digital marketing strategies, entrepreneurial insights, and success stories specifically designed for my busy parent entrepreneurs just like you. You don't have to be a parent entrepreneur. You could just be a regular entrepreneur. You'll still get value out of it. This isn't just another newsletter cluttering your inbox. It's a weekly dose of practical wisdom to help you turn those small pockets of time into profitable momentum. It's about giving you the tools, the tactics, and those mindset shifts that can help you run your race more effectively. So head on over to darkhorseinsider.com right now and join our community of dark horse entrepreneurs who are defying the odds and building businesses on their own terms. Because here's one thing that I know for sure. The world needs what only you can build. Your unique perspective, your specific combination of skills and expertise, your particular way of solving problems. These things matter. They have value. And someone out there is waiting for the solution that only you are able to provide. Okay. So whether you're just starting to explore your entrepreneurship or you're already deep into the journey, remember this: you are the dark horse. You are the unexpected contender, and you are the one who can surprise every goddamn one out there, including yourself, with what it is that you are capable of building. So get out there, run your race, get your results, and let me hear about them. Seriously, go ahead and email me. Go ahead and go to the darkhorseschooling.com. You'll see that contact me form out there. You can just drop your information right there. I want to hear from you. Heck, who knows? Might bring you on the show and interview as a result of that. And with that, I'm going to leave you as I always do. Think successfully and take action.
Hey, my Dark Horse entrepreneurs, thanks for investing your precious time with us today. I know that between soccer practice and bedtime stories, every single minute counts. And that's exactly why I created the Dark Horse Insider, your weekly dose of digital marketing strategies, all designed specifically for my busy entrepreneurs, especially my busy parent entrepreneurs. If you're ready to turn those small pockets of time into profitable momentum, head on over to darkhorseinsider.com, darkhorseinsider.com, and join our free newsletter. Because we Dark Horses do not just run the race, we change how the race is won. Until next time, think successfully and take action. darkhorseinsider.com.